I run this city. I'm St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter. I'm excited to live in and serve what I fully believe is the most incredible city on the planet. I tell folks all the time, the biggest thing I learned in moving 1,000 miles away is how much I like home. But I'm from this city. I love this city. The city has raised me. My family's been here for 100 years. Right now, the two things that keep me awake at night are public safety and potholes.
The potholes.
I personally dig them.
You know, the whole, it's like you at the pothole, you're like, thanks, Mayor Carter.
That's right.
People are complaining about the potholes. How is that money? Where's that money gonna come from? It's not just gonna fall out of the sky.
I have more than one ankle that I can blame on a pothole. So I have a lot at stake in getting these things fixed. That's what we want to do. We want to switch from just sort of chasing potholes to saying we're going to rebuild our streets so that we can build them for the future.
Oh,
we can do it.
We have to.
Minneapolis versus St. Paul,
Minneapolis
and
St. Paul.
Right. Friendly competition.
All of my life trying to figure out whether St. Paul or Minneapolis is better.
Yeah.
When in actuality, I think, if St. Paul has a teammate, if St. Paul has a partner, it's Minneapolis.
So we're better than Minneapolis.
Well, we're better than everybody.
Welcome everyone to episode 17 of Weekly Deposit. We have an extraordinary guest with us today, probably our most illustrious guest, by far our most well-known guest, the 55th mayor of St. Paul, elected in his first term of 2017, in turn becoming the first African-American mayor of St. Paul, a true native of the city, born here in St. Paul in the Rondo neighborhood, being a fourth-generation resident. His father was a St. Paul police officer, his mother a past school teacher, who also served as the Ramsey County Commissioner. He attended St. Paul Central High School. After high school, he did his bachelor's in business administration from Florida A&M University. Came back to Minnesota to get his master's degree in public policy from the University of Minnesota. He's an avid long distance runner, a talented mathematician. We'll throw some math questions at him later. And his most important title as a husband and a father of 5 beautiful children. We're honored to have you today, Mayor Melvin Carter. Let's give a warm
Mayor
welcome.
Carter. Let's go.
I've never been introduced as a mathematician before.
We did our research.
Right.
You were good at math, so we had to throw that in there.
Once upon a time. That's right.
Okay, so we always like to kind of start off on a topic that we tend to like, right? Get it a little soft, a couple of softball questions towards you. We're avid travelers. We firmly believe through traveling, people can learn and grow as individuals, which in turn is a better society for us. With that being said, what is the last place you visited, and what's the next place you want to visit?
Ooh.
And preferably outside of the U.S.
I think the last place I was Jamaica. We like to go to Jamaica. There's a spot there. Me and my wife have been going to together for years. And so I think that's the last place we went. A friend of ours got married there. And I think one of the next places I'm planning to be is Israel. Looking forward to going to Israel. I fully agree with you. The world is too big to only see a part of it, only see one corner of it. St. Paul's an incredible place. And I know that because I've gotten a chance to see so many other places.
Right? You don't get to appreciate home until you've gone somewhere else. You see kind of the struggles or other different ways of life, other cultures, and then you come back home and you're like, wow.
You know what? That's right. I graduated from high school with a one-way ticket to Florida. I was a sprinter. We were just talking about that. I was a sprinter, and I wanted to go to a warm place, and I wanted to get out of the snow. I want to get out of the center, out of this wintry place. And I went to school for 4 years in Florida. And when I finished, I tell folks all the time, the biggest thing I learned in moving 1,000 miles away is how much I like home. You get there and you realize all these things we took for granted about St. Paul, about Minnesota. You get there and say, where's your thriving art scene? Where's your immigrant community? Where's your free city-owned zoo? And you come to find out, not every community has the stuff we have here.
You don't notice that until you leave, because I lived in Chicago for quite some time, and I'm like, man, it ain't like back home at all. Like, just the people too.
That's right.
The people here are very like homely. They open doors. They're just like very small knit tight community, which is good, but also inviting too. Yeah. Where you don't get that in a lot of other states or cities that you go to across the country.
Yeah, this is definitely a special place. But like I said, I like you said, I absolutely encourage folks, go see the world. Go see, go spend time overseas, get your passport stamped and go spend time. And I've gotten a chance to I've been really blessed to be able to visit a number of different places and just to see. And honestly, I bring back ideas from different places. A lot of our ideas about public art and how we support public art and public artists better came from a trip that I took years ago to Cuba. and seeing the way like public art was just part of the space. It wasn't that they built the block and then put some art on it. It's that they built the block artistically. And so a lot of the ideas I have around St. Paul really come from stealing this and that from different cities that I've visited.
Cuba's super interesting with all the old cars and everything.
It's amazing.
So it's like kind of stuck in like that 40s, 50s era feel.
It was amazing. And people, I found some of the most kindest, most helpful folks there. Loved visiting Cuba. It was just fantastic. And so my plan when I go visit places, I have a theory that a tour guide's job is to keep you from authentically seeing a place. And so my goal is when the tour guide says, look this way, I'm always looking the other way. And so when I visit a place, I want to go to a pub. I want to ride public transit. And I want to go to open air market.
See the real culture.
And if you do those, I find if you do those three things in a new place, you'll have a better understanding of it than you can get in any museum.
Exactly. Do you go to Kingston when you go to Jamaica?
I've been to Kingston a number of times. We generally go to Negril though. We like to get away from the like super touristy spots.
Me and Julian are big foodies, especially when it comes to Caribbean food.
Is that right?
Oh my God. We can't take, I got to get this guy off the sauce.
Is that right?
I love sauce. Shout out to West Indies Soul Food on University.
Without a doubt. West Indies Soul. Pimento's a good spot.
Pimento's a good spot too.
Definitely love pimento. I got in a big argument one time. We were in a patty shop in Kingston, and we were watching track and field, and we got in an argument over whether Jamaican sprinting or American sprinting was better.
Oh.
And I think I won the argument, but all my friends were like, okay, let's go now.
Okay. So, no, that's perfect. What inspired you to become mayor, and what do you hope to accomplish during your time in office? Obviously, as we mentioned in the introduction, your family has somewhat of a political background in the city. Was that a catalyst to your own political career?
Yes and no. Growing up, my family was really active in community service and community activity. My parents both founded nonprofit organizations. Mom's a teacher, dad's a former police officer. And so I saw these models of public service, right up close. It didn't really turn into electoral service until a lot later. And the truth is, early on, to me, I was happy to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity or go do something with the NAACP and things like that. But like elected office just didn't feel relevant to like everyday community life. That's a whole different conversation. I ended up deciding I wanted to run for city council when we were building light rail on University Avenue, because the way the plan was originally established was kind of going to hopscotch the community that I grew up in, the community that my parents still live in, et cetera. And so there were a number of us who got involved in this fight to add back what we called the 3 missing stations, because it wasn't going to stop at Victoria, Hamlin, or Western Avenues. And, we wanted to make sure that was fixed. And we did get a chance to fix that, so that on day one we had stops where that was concerned. But I'm from this city. I love this city. The city has raised me. My family's been here for 100 years. I'm raising my kids in this community. And let me tell you, ultimately, I think there are folks in this community who say, this was a great city back in the 80s. We should get back to that, which is not as diverse, not as multicultural, not as multilingual, not as exciting, not as spicy as this city is right now. And then I think there's folks who say, wait a minute. We have all of these assets that we didn't have 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We ought to be pushing forward to the city we've never been.
Yeah.
And that dichotomy is really exciting to me, and the opportunity to build us to a city that we've never been before. And ultimately, we're doing a lot of stuff. We built college savings accounts. We start every child born in our city with $50 in a college savings account. We raised the minimum wage. We've established, we've piloted guaranteed income. We've established this office of neighborhood safety to help drive our reimagining public safety. And we're doing a whole lot of things different than what I think we're used to seeing cities do. But the tie that binds it all together is this. I think we've inherited what I think of as a broken model of city building that tells us that we got to, invest in bricks and mortar and concrete and forget those people, And so we end up building trains that don't stop to pick up our most transit dependent populations. We end up building roads and paving over people's homes to build roads. We end up trying to keep ourselves safe by locking up all the young black and brown boys that we can find. And we end up trying to carve the economic future of our community by overlooking all the human potential that exists in our community and go and find somebody from out of town to go kind of bribe to come here, or go incentivize to come here.
Well, you would know about paving the roads to get rid of neighborhoods. I mean, Rondo is a perfect example of that.
That's right.
The whole 94.
Rondo's a perfect example of that. We said, we got to get around this town better. So let's uproot these 700 families so that we can all get around. And that's all an example of this broken model of city building that causes us to always bet against our own residents. And so the tie that binds everything that we're trying to do, to make a long story just a couple seconds longer, is switching from that to a model that says, what if our whole plan to build the future of this city was around just finding crazy ways every day to just bet on our own children, to bet on our own businesses, to bet on our workforce, to bet on our ideas, to bet on our own innovators, to just literally go all in on the human capital potential that exists within our city.
Okay. That's wonderful, because you're right. The human component is sometimes overlooked, especially in politics.
That's right.
Sometimes due to outside forces, lobbying, businesses, whatever the case, roads might be. I think there has to be some type of balance though at that point too, right? At the same time, yes, you do need to get around the city better. And at the same time, help people stop at places where the public transit is needed.
Well, and I don't see those as opposites, actually. We need to build roads to people's homes, not over people's homes.
Yep.
And so when we think about building buildings and we think about building bridges and infrastructure and streets, it's for the purpose of facilitating people getting around and people being able to thrive within our community. And so when we're building that road literally over 700 homes, we're putting the cart in front of the horse. We're getting it out of line. Our goal ought to be to facilitate these 700 families. Our goal ought to be able to facilitate their success, not trying to move them out of the way so that the rest of us can get through.
No, exactly. I grew up in Cedar Riverside, so I know what public transit was before the light rail and then what it was afterwards and everything like that. So I wholeheartedly agree. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the city of St. Paul right now? And what's your plans to address them?
Right now, the two things that keep me awake at night are public safety and potholes.
The potholes.
Which was our next question.
Public safety and potholes are the two things that keep me up at night. I'm excited about, I actually think that St. Paul is leading the nation in our approach to public safety. Ultimately, we've been promised for all of our lives that if we just build bigger prisons and hire, tougher police and prosecutors to fill them, that we'll be safe. Nobody would argue that that's worked. And the most common thing that we do when we think our public safety strategies aren't working because we don't feel safe enough is to literally do more of the same. We should build more prisons and more police and more prosecutors.
It's not going to work.
Well, it hasn't yet. And so it literally is the definition of insanity, doing more of the same thing and expecting a different result. So our goal is to expand our public safety frame. The reason it doesn't work is because police, prosecutors, and prisons all kick in after something bad has happened. You can't prevent something bad by starting your work after something bad has happened. So the question is, how do we identify the cycles of violence that are happening in our community? How do we break them? How do we make the proactive interventions and investments that are necessary to reduce the number of times we have to call 911 in the first place? And so that means what we call our kind of optimal response strategy, building, EMTs to come and show up and help folks in crisis. Sometimes folks call 911. I'll tell you, sometimes folks call 911 because somebody's robbing a bank or committing violence or there's a crime. And in those cases, we have to make sure that we have a police officer there. There's no substitute for a police officer with a badge and a uniform and the tools that they have. Most of the time when people call 911, it's because they're concerned. It's because somebody's in crisis. It's because somebody's homeless. It's because there's just like a neighborhood concern that they're not sure of. And most of the time, this is the problem. Most of the time, those problems actually don't really lend themselves to the toolkit that we equip our officers with. And so that's why, having emergency housing counselors ready to go when somebody calls 911, having EMTs ready to go when somebody calls 911, having those community responders ready to go when somebody calls 911 is really critical. We're doing a lot of that work. Where potholes are concerned, it's not all that complicated, honestly. We have just underinvested in our streets for a generation. I was telling you before we started recording, our streets we expect to have a 60-year lifespan. We inherited them when I came in office on a 124-year replacement cycle. That's why they're all busted up, because we haven't put the money into them. And so we're proposing a 1 cent sales tax that would give us $40 million a year, 30 of which we want to pump straight into our streets. We get what's called a pavement condition index report on a scale of 1 to 100. Our streets are at a 48 right now. If we just keep trying to scrap together what we can at the local level, 20 years from now, they're projected to be at a 20. If we can make this infusion of capital that I want to make through this sales tax proposal, we can move them to a 70. That's what we want to do. We want to switch from just sort of chasing potholes to saying we're going to rebuild our streets so that we can build them for the future.
No, I think that's a great idea. I mean, we've got some flack from people talking about business owners like, why'd you raise the sales tax? But I mean, it's like, come on now, like pick your struggle. Like, people are complaining about the potholes. How is that money? Where's that money going to come from? It's not just going to fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you explaining that, it makes more sense. And I think that's what people need to know. Like, the money has to come from somewhere.
It does have to come from somewhere. Like, there's no magic free way to do it. The other thing that I think is important that's an advantage of the sales tax is when we think about our streets and, again, our parks, when we look at, like, we are going to put $1 billion into our streets. Go drive away from here, wherever, in any direction, and you'll see that we are going to have to put $1 billion. Yes. Whether we plan for it or not, whether we like it or not, whether we budget for it or not, we're going to put $1 billion in our streets. The question is, will we kick the can down? The further we kick the can down the road, the less we'll get for it. And will we do it on our terms, or will we have to do it on emergency response terms? So we're going to do it. The question is, do we get it from our property taxes, which means it's limited to only the people who own property, who live and own a business, own a building in this city, or if we do it through a sales tax, because one of the things we have to know is that, our streets, we have a lot of folks who come in and out of town, who, commute into downtown to work, or, who come to a game or come to a tournament or come to eat or whatever it is. In our parks, we have a lot of folks who, Como Zoo, Como Park, Phelan, we have a lot of folks who come in from outside of our city to use our parks. So that's one of the advantages of a sales tax is it invites some of those users who don't live in the city, who aren't St. Paul property tax owners,
that can contribute to
be a part of the solution to the resources that they use pretty heavily.
Right. Oh, no, I think that's smart. I
think the one drawback, what we've talked to and people are saying is, well, hold on. There's a surplus the state has, which in turn St. Paul has. Where are those funds being allocated to?
So the state having it doesn't mean that in turn St. Paul has it. We're making an argument for a significant portion of it. But again, let me tell you, we have a statewide surplus of about $17 billion. We need $1 billion into our streets, $1 billion plus. And so, there's no guarantee that, the state is willing to just, hand St. Paul $1 billion.
Yep.
The other piece that we have to know is that surplus is one-time funding. So the way I talk to people about some of this is, if you think about your own budget, you have a salary, you have a paycheck that you can count on every couple of weeks, and then you might get a year-end bonus, right? And when you get that year-end bonus, there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. You can't get a higher rent. You can't get a bigger apartment because it's only one time.
Yep.
And so where our streets are concerned, we need to invest in our streets this year. We need to do it next year. We need to do it the year after that. We need to do it every single year, forever. And so one-time funding doesn't give us the predictability, the consistency over the next 20 years and beyond that we need to actually write the course. Yeah, it would help us, but it doesn't give us that consistency.
This is a long-term plan. It's not a short-term. And that's when people, they want it to be a short-term. They want to fix right now, where it's, you have to explain like, hey, this is the long game plan.
As do I. I want it fixed right now too.
It doesn't happen like that.
That's right.
The whole is like you at the pothole. You're like, thanks, Mayor Carter.
That's right. I personally dig them. No, I run this city. I probably cover more of this city on foot than most people.
Yep.
Not everybody.
I see your Instagram.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm like, okay.
That's right.
You hit a couple miles today.
I have more than one ankle that I can blame on a pothole that, drive me crazy. So I have a lot at stake in getting these things fixed.
No, we're actually going to have Andy Rodriguez, director of the Parks and Recs of St. Paul, on the podcast here soon. So
he can really dive into the potholes.
No, but you know what? But Andy, and again, the sales tax proposal is 3/4 for our streets and 1/4 for our parks.
Yep.
Our parks are an incredible amenity. We just last year got ranked the number 2 park system in the country, second only to Washington, D.C., and they have the National Mall.
Yeah,
they have federal funding for the National Mall.
So we're better than Minneapolis.
Well, we're better than everybody. but better than everybody.
But better than Minneapolis.
You know, we don't lean into the Minneapolis St. Paul competition. I will tell you this. We've spent. I think we've spent all of my life trying to figure out whether St. Paul or Minneapolis is better.
Yeah.
When in actuality, I think if St. Paul has a teammate, if St. Paul has a partner, it's Minneapolis.
Yes,
and
for sure.
as we think about how we do this work together and partner and leverage each other's strengths, then we can shift from a conversation to who's the better city in Minnesota to how do we field a region, a metro area that can be relevant on the globe. Like I think the St. Paul, Minneapolis metro area is competitive. Like when we show our strengths, when we show our colleges, when we show our river, our waterfront, when we show our Fortune 500 companies, when we show our innovators.
There's a ton here.
Culture, arts.
Multilingual cultural arts. We're every bit as relevant as any metropolitan area on the planet. And so I'm, and I know you're kidding, I know you're joking, but I love to lean into the strengths that we have as a metropolitan area because that can, I think, change the math for all of us.
Yeah.
Yes, no,
I don't think there's any city or cities as unique as the Twin Cities, being so close, being so metropolitan. Yeah. Like there's no other city that's like that. Just another city right across the river.
Dallas Fort Worth kind of has like down there. They think of it as a Twin Cities, but it is not the real.
There's some areas that have a similar Dallas Fort Worth, DC and Baltimore. There's cities that are like relatively close. I don't think they're like as close or as kind of closely knit as we are.
Dallas Fort Worth is about 45 minutes from each other. Right. We're 16 minutes.
That's right. So, I mean, we're across the street. In some places.
In some places, if you're on Highland. So,
Mayor Carter, thank you. You want to give your final message, what you would like to convey to the residents of St. Paul and those considering moving to the city of St. Paul, to that camera right there. That is your dedicated camera.
Absolutely.
Give your pitch.
Well, I appreciate it. Hey, I'm St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter. I'm excited to live in and serve what I fully believe is the most incredible city on the planet. Come check us out. Whether you live here or whether you're considering living here, get out in town and see Como Zoo, see our incredible, I always tell folks you can travel the world on a plate in our city. And we just have an incredible community that, we've of course experienced the same challenges as everybody else has over these last several years. But the ingenuity of our community, the diversity of our community, the grit of the people who live in this city is something I'm really excited to be able to serve. And you'll be able to look at City Hall and see that nobody's betting on their own people. Nobody's doubling down on their own communities, our own children, our own businesses, the way that we are in St. Paul. And, I appreciate all of you guys for the help that you give and also the way that you invest in yourselves and each other. To help move us into the future that I know we have in store for us.
Love that.
Yes. Mayor Carter, thank you so much for your time. We hope that you enjoyed it. We hope we weren't too hard on you. Mayor, we know your time is valuable.
You said I'm getting invited back, right?
Yes, of course. Okay. If you come back,
you said
of course.
You want to come back.
Well,
you said it on the air, and I want to make sure that
you didn't walk out, so that's good.
Wait, one stipulation, right? Since you boys are the St. Paul boys, I got to have Mayor Fry and me be the Minneapolis.
We can do
boys.
it.
Oh,
we can do it.
We have to.
Minneapolis versus St. Paul, or Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah. Friendly competition.
That's
friendly rivalry.
Mayor Fry always says, what's his word? He says cooperation is what we're doing.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yes, we know how valuable your time is. We're extremely grateful for you to come here today, speak to us, our viewers, our listeners. We really enjoyed this podcast. We hope you come back in the future, which you said you would. We pray for you and the city's continued success. And above all, we pray for your health and the health of your family. Thank you once again. Everyone, please subscribe, comment on what you love about the city of St. Paul and what are some changes you'd love for the mayor to implement. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks, everyone, and we'll be back here for episode 18. Bye.
Take it easy.
See ya.